So welcome everybody to today's session. I'm Diana Gray. I'm the Community Marketing Manager for UiPath America. And today we have a Day in the Life series, session 1 for Women in Automation in 2024. So we're doing this series once every 2 weeks. And I will put into the chat where you can register for the next session. I will also put in chat where you'll find the recording tomorrow of this session. If you would please keep yourself on mute, that would be really helpful. And also, if you have any questions, just please put those in chat and we'll answer them. And at the end of the session, we can unmute the mic so everybody can ask their questions. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sangeeta.
Thanks, Diana. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, based on wherever you're joining us from. We are very thrilled to kick off a Day in the Life series by the Women in Automation Group at UiPath. I'm Sangeeta Ray, and I lead the Women in Automation Group here. And it's really my privilege to host today's session. So as Diana mentioned, today, as you know, is the first session of this series. And the main goal of the series is to take you behind the scenes of different roles at UiPath and in the AI and automation industry overall. So whether you're exploring a new career opportunity, aiming to grow in your current role, or just curious about the industry overall, this series is definitely for you. You're at the right place. Today's session is specific. We are diving into the world of technical account management, a role which bridges the gap between technology and business, ensuring that our customers get the most out of their automation solutions. And with that, I'm very pleased to introduce two incredible women who are our speakers in today's session, Emily and Laura. Welcome and thanks for joining. Before we get into the questions and the discussion, a few housekeeping things. As Diana mentioned, we'll be muting everybody during the session, but we will have 15 minutes at the end reserved for Q&A from the audience. But then we absolutely want to keep this session interactive. So please share your comments and reactions through the chat. And as you already have been doing, please keep sharing where you're joining us from, which company, what role, and what exactly brought you here today. So with that, let's kick off the discussion. So Laura and Emily, why don't we start off with a brief introduction? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're located, and your role and tenure at UiPath.
Sure. I'm Emily Toll. I have been at UiPath for 2.5 years now. I'm located in Richmond, Virginia, and prior to me coming to UiPath, I did a massive career shift. I was working in optical previously, and I spent 6 years there. And the last 2 I spent as a vision therapist, which I primarily worked with children, helping to realign the visual system, which is comprised of both eyes and the brain. So basically, like if things are out of alignment, they have trouble reading, words look like they're jumping around the page. So I worked with them to do basically like muscle stretches and fine motor, gross motor skills, helping them gain awareness. It was a very rewarding job. I really liked the work, but my work environment was did not match the work that I was doing. I had a really difficult boss, and finally it just came to the point where the work just wasn't enough to keep me there, and I needed a change, and I needed to figure out how to do that quickly. So I ended up going to a coding boot camp. I had spoken to a friend of mine who had gone to the same one, and she was really encouraging about it, had a great experience. So I signed up, applied, got accepted, went through boot camp, and was hired at UiPath all within 6 months. So it was like a whirlwind of experience. Massive change, but ultimately I'm very happy with where I'm at. It's not a developer position, which is what I was trained to do, but in many ways I think being a technical account manager is much more suited to my customer service skill set, and the fact that I'm like constantly learning and growing and able to have that people connection in the role has been really and it's been really enjoyable. So it wasn't what I necessarily set out to do, but I'm really glad that I took a chance and landed here.
Very interesting. Very interesting transition, and very glad to know that you're enjoying it here in your role for sure. Laura, what about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Laura Weiner. I'm super excited to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity. And I think I see some of my customers out in the audience, some of my fellow coworkers. So, hey, thanks guys for coming, represent. So very similar to Emily, I also made a huge career change. I completed my bachelor's degree in finance and risk management, and I worked in HR for 6 years, and followed by healthcare administration for 3 years. After that, it was just very challenging to advance my career without getting a master's degree or having some sort of a clinical background being in healthcare. So I took a leap of faith and I quit my job and also did a full stack development boot camp like Emily did as well. And that landed my job here at UiPath. And I really appreciate being here at UiPath because I do love to work with people. I have a lot of organizational project management skills. And I feel like the technical account manager allows me to really build on my technical skills, continuously learn, but also work with people, lead meetings, have these types of opportunities so I can continuously grow and work in the technology field, learning AI. Everything around me is changing and advancing all the time. And then also get to work with people, meet my customers, and just, have a good time. So I think this is a really great fit for me. I've been here for a little bit over 2.5 years. I'm part of the strategic portfolio. I work fully remote, and I'm local to Charlotte, North Carolina. So thanks, everybody.
That's awesome. Very interesting stories. So I think the key takeaway already is it's very important to remember that career paths are rarely straightforward. People move across various roles and their career trajectories evolve over time. I actually have experienced that firsthand as well. I have been in this digital transformation space for more than 15 years now, working for multiple Fortune 100, 500 companies across various verticals. And I have worn different hats throughout my career, from project management, program management, implementation, customer success, all over. And I absolutely think that each role has contributed to my growth and shaped the professional I am today. So I think the key takeaway is embrace the journey and know that each step you take adds value, and you just build on your skills and take it ahead.
Definitely.
So very interesting stories, Laura and Emily. Thanks for sharing that. So for our audience, some of you might not be entirely familiar with the role of TAM, Technical Account Manager, because different companies use different titles for similar positions. For example, some organizations refer to them as implementation specialists. I'm also seeing a new term, customer success engineers. And even as the focus is getting more on value selling, some of the roles are even called as value engineers. So, Laura, why don't you share a little bit about the role in specific? What are the typical responsibilities for TAMs?
So, good question. In short, ultimately we're a trusted advisor for our enterprise customers, helping to ensure that the products that they have purchased are successfully adopted. So what does that actually mean? It means a whole lot of things. We operate on a wide variety of different activities. Every customer is very different. Every customer has different organizational goals. They may have different infrastructure setups, security standards. So we need to, first off, understand, more about the customer and try to really tailor the experience to them. So depending on who they are, the different activities that we'll have. So the day-to-day is going to look different based on, what the customer needs are. Just so some examples of what we do, we act as a technical liaison for UiPath. So our enterprise customers, they might not have a direct connect to our product managers or to our subject matter experts. So if we don't know all the answers, because within UiPath, there's so much to know, there's so much knowledge, and it's just a small amount. There's a whole world of computer science and everything that is all getting pulled together. So being able to be a liaison between our subject matter experts and our engineers, having that direct communication, so that trusted advisor, someone you can come to and who can, work with the internal team at UiPath and bring you back answers. We help you establish support plans that align with your organizational goals. So this might include creating enablement sessions, tailoring plans directly for you, customizing, what exactly that you would like to learn. What are the new features that are coming up? I work with a lot of developers. So I do a lot of development coaching. We also help with troubleshooting. So we may have office hours once a week and people are like, hey, I'm building this code. I'm not sure, keeps on failing here. We can help troubleshoot things like that. We can also, work with our product support engineers and be like, okay, well, maybe we need to open a ticket, help you move that forward, help that escalate so things start moving forward for you. And really just ensure that you guys are operating under best practices. These are being followed and that you have someone that you can go to ask questions and you can trust, and really build that relationship.
That's awesome. I work very closely with TAMs, and they bring so much of value to the accounts and the customers for sure. Emily, what about you? Would you like to add something else to that? How does your typical day look like? What are your usual deliverables?
My typical day is I'm in a lot of meetings, actually. Not every TAM is, but the type of accounts that I have require kind of a lot of touch points. So, or one of my accounts is a very large account, and so there's meetings with different teams within their organization. So I spend probably anywhere between 4 and 6 hours a day in meetings, and then the rest of that time is spent delivering any sort of actionable items if I have like research to do or I need to ask a question on the customer's behalf, keeping up with the communication, either like with the customer or with product support or product in general. I feel like the majority of my day is a lot of communication, really. Like I'm either like answering an email, sending an email, making sure someone's like following up with something, or in a meeting, like running a meeting, providing advice, working through some sort of strategy. One of my customers right now is in the middle of migrating from Automation Suite to Automation Cloud, which has not been done before. So that raises a lot of questions, and getting certain people from the different product teams or the cloud team to kind of like meet with us or the customer. I do a lot of it's a lot of coordination as well. It's like, so that's in addition to what Laura said. I don't work as much with developers and I don't do as much enablement, but that's just because of where my accounts are and what they need right now. So my day looks just a little bit different, but it's still similar.
Absolutely, yeah. Depending on the customers, the phase where they are, of course, our roles would be very different and the deliverables as well.
Right.
So just if I can summarize what both of you said, TAMs essentially bridge the gap between the technology and customer success also. And they're the linchpin between our customers and the technology they use. So mainly to ensure that our solutions are not only implemented, but they're actually optimized to drive the real value. So, and to do that, a lot of skills are needed. So in your experience, Emily and Laura, what skills do you think are needed to really succeed and thrive in this role?
I'll take that one first. So in my experience, what the biggest skill that I've needed is communication and knowing how to effectively communicate, whether that be verbally through a call or written in an email or a Slack message. Knowing how, we are a global company at UiPath, so you're interacting with people who may not have English as their first language. So knowing how to phrase certain questions away and like watching your tone, it's all really important to be sensitive to that and be able to, you want to get a response from someone, right? If I'm asking a question, I want them to be able to respond to me. I want to be able to get on their good side. So I want to approach every interaction I have with an amount of sensitivity and care, and to also like treat that person as a person. And if a support engineer has been out, and this has happened to me before, where someone's been out, a ticket has kind of like lapsed, there's no action on it, it hasn't been passed over, but it turns out that person was out because their kid was in the hospital or something. And so I wanted to make sure that like they were okay, that person was okay, and following up with that person, but that mattered more than like my ticket that was kind of going nowhere at the time. So just being aware and like people centric is a big part of the job, I think. Problem solving skills, organization is I mean, we have multiple accounts, anywhere between, I would say most TAMs have like 4 and 6, some like, give or take. And you have to keep all that information straight. So being able to keep that all organized and not relying on your memory for all of that is also really a helpful skill to have. So, you want to add anything, Laura?
Yeah. I mean, definitely adding on to Emily's point on communication, it's very important. We work with a lot of cross-functional teams. We also have to communicate well with the customers. We have to be able to host meetings, lead presentations, these types of things. So I would say that's almost, maybe the number one most important skill to have. But the next one is problem solving, solution analysis, because you're going to be on a call and someone's going to ask you a question and you're not going to know the answer. And this happens very often, but you need to be able to figure it out. So how do you do the research to find the answer? Who are the people that you need to reach out to? Where do you need to look to find the answer? So just having that understanding of how to do, problem solution analysis is very important. Technical skills are important, but I think being adaptable is even more important. This is a very fast-paced industry. I've been here for, like I said, a little over 2.5 years. Just to kind of put that in perspective, ChatGPT came out less than 2 years ago. So everything is now generative AI, whereas when I first started, no one really talked about AI. So just kind of thinking how fast-paced it is, you can be continuously learning and you're like, oh, I got it. And then they're like, actually, we changed everything. So now you need to figure it out again. So just being able to be adaptable, continuously learn, and really being able to also manage your time, because we are in a lot of meetings and we do have a lot of action items that often come out of those meetings. And I don't want to be that person that works all night and weekends. I want to stick to my 40 hours. So being able to manage my time efficiently, I feel like is also very important.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm reading the comment from Andrea that empathy and the EQ, absolutely. Like in TAMS, you all work with so much with the cross-functional teams and customers that empathy and EQ absolutely takes us a long way. So just recapping what you all talked about, definitely communication mining, problem solving, being agile and adaptive, and being curious, the open to continuous learning and problem solving, and absolutely organization skills and time management. So that actually makes me think that all these skills are pretty transferable. And maybe that's the reason we have really seen a lot of folks move across roles. Like I've seen folks go from TAMS to product management to implementation, then TAMS to customer success, and so on. So all these skills are very valuable and a lot transferable across different roles too. So awesome. I was waiting how long we can go without using the word AI and the impact of AI. So these days we cannot have a conversation for more than 10 minutes without letting AI come in. So let's talk about that. How do you see AI and the current market trends shape the future of the TAM role? Like, are there any specific AI tools or technologies that you already use in your day-to-day work? And while our panelists are answering that, I would actually love to know from our audience, what AI tools are they using to make their work easier and faster?
Yeah, I can take that first. It's kind of a complicated answer a little bit, because the TAM role, there's not a lot of standardization. So not too much of it can be done by AI, which is kind of a relief in some ways, since our role is sort of cushioned from that. But we can use it for certain things to help us move along. So there's an extension you can add into your Google Chrome called Merlin, and that's an AI, kind of like a ChatGPT-ish tool. So when you do like your basic Google search, you get all your regular responses, but then on the right-hand side, there's like a really more concise explanation of your search, which I find helpful. I do utilize that. And I do use ChatGPT to help with condensing our own documentation. So I'll take like a page or a piece of documentation, and instead of just emailing a link to a customer, because a lot of customers just hate that, I put it through ChatGPT and I'm like, put this in an outline form, and it outlines it and makes it more consumable for maybe a less technical audience. And then I'm able to send that and kind of help. I've also used ChatGPT to help me draft emails, and I usually draft my own email. I don't really like the ChatGPT verbiage, but what I'll do is I'll send an email if I'm like worried about my tone, or if it's like coming across like a little too straightforward maybe, and I'll ask GPT if it's, if this is appropriate for this situation, and it'll kind of give me like ideas to make my tone like softer or something. So that's been helpful. But overall, like other than the little administrative, I guess, aids that ChatGPT can help with, the TAM work, it's pretty manual, so I don't, I'm not afraid of AI. Basically, I feel like my role is pretty secure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good answer, Emily. I agree. I feel fairly safe in the TAM role. I think it's important that, as I mentioned before, that we're trusted advisors. I don't know if people are going to really ever trust AI robots to be their trusted advisor. So we need to have that human to human interaction. So I think that's very important with the TAM role. I do think, excuse me, I do think the AI can help enhance our role, help us to work with more customers, be more efficient. It can help to troubleshoot errors. This is something I'm already doing. We have an internal chat interface where I can just like copy and paste an error message that you get in, and it spits out like, hey, these are the 10 suggestions. This is what you should try out. And I'm like, okay, let me just put it here first and then start doing a whole bunch of research. Let me just see if I can get a quick answer. So ways that you can start being more efficient. And I was actually chatting with one of my friends the other day, just talking about this conversation, and they were saying that they were using Copilot, and they weren't even talking about risk, but they're apparently having a merger with their organization and another organization. It pulled up like, hey, this is a potential risk area for you. There's this merger coming up and it may affect your project. They're a project manager. So, AIs can start analyzing risks as well, so we can be more proactive instead of being reactive. So we do spend a lot of time being reactive. We do try to be proactive as much as we can. But, we also need to be that resource where people are struggling, they need someone to reach out to. So hoping that AI can help us to balance that a little bit, be more proactive. Another way that I use AI, I do use Copilot with Teams. UiPath mostly uses Zoom, but all of my customers use Teams. So when I have a customer call, I always set it up on Teams, and I start off Copilot, and it'll actually analyze, the conversation that we have, and what action items goes to each person. So someone will be like, hey, they said they're going to follow up on this thing. I'm like, let me just check real quick and see what they're like. I'm not sure what I was going to follow up on. It takes all those notes for you, so you don't have to be worried about constantly taking notes. You can really focus in on the conversation. So those are ways that I use it now in my current role.
Absolutely, yeah. No, AI has definitely made our lives so much easier and more efficient, whether it's, again, I'm not a TAM, but I use, and I'm sure everybody does, ChatGPT, Gemini, and Zoom Assistant, and Copilot, as you mentioned, makes things so much simpler and easier. And I'm actually glad, Laura, you talked about predictive analytics. I was actually at a industry conference yesterday, and there was a lot of conversation about using AI for predictive analytics so that all teams, like whether it's TAMs or customer success, could be more proactive and generate more value. So I'm really excited to see what AI can do for us in that one. Awesome. Thank you for all the participants who have been sharing how they use AI to elevate and make their lives easier as well. So let's talk a little bit more about the UiPath platform per se. So our platform has been really evolving and enhancing constantly, adding so much more capabilities and features. So Laura and Emily, I would love to know, what is your favorite feature, or maybe something you are finding that your customers are benefiting a lot from? And if you're up for it, we could love to have a quick overview or a demo.
I can take this one first. So I would say my favorite part of the platform is actually UiPath apps. A lot of people don't actually use, a lot of my customers don't actually use apps, but it allows you to put a front end to your unattended automation. So a lot of times people may think that, they need to go with an attended automation, but you can actually build out a whole interface that you can use on a mobile app or in the browser. You can actually even launch apps from your assistant, your robot assistant from your desktop. Pull up a screen where you can enter a form and you can launch unattended automations in the background. So that's my favorite part, but I thought what would be cool to demo today is what we call Autopilot. So Autopilot is our generative AI tool that's getting built throughout our entire platform. And we're using a lot of different personas as well. So the one I'm going to show you guys today is Autopilot for developers. This really encompasses our studio, which is what we use for development. And then also UiPath apps, so what I was just mentioning. So we are actually able to use text or natural language to create code or to create apps. We can drag and drop images into apps and it'll create something for you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
And while Laura is doing that, I would actually love to know from the audience, what are your favorite features or tools? And also about apps and Autopilot, if you have used it, and what's your feedback about it?
Mm-hmm. Can everyone see my screen? It should be the apps platform here.
Yes.
Awesome. Sweet. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use, so as you can see here, there's actually this place where you can generate with Autopilot. So you can type something in here if you wanted to just start with, hey, I would like to create an app that does this, or you can actually just drag and drop a form. So what I have here is, I found this form online just for this example, but let's just say that you're a doctor's office and you have people, handwriting, manually filling these out, turning them in, and then a staff member has to fill them out for you. So let's just say that they have an iPad at the office. They hand it to the patient, they can input this information in for them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop this over into here. So what it does, it's going to start creating your app for you. It's going to be able to have an understanding of checkboxes are yes and no data types. An entry point or a text space, it needs to be a string. If it's asking for a date of birth, it's going to know that it's asking for a date time entry. So those types of things, it's going to be smart enough, read that form, and it's going to start building out the interface for you. So you don't have to start from scratch, giving you that a little bit. You may want to play around with it. You may want to make it pretty. I usually spend way too much time when I play around in apps making things pretty, but it allows you to kind of jumpstart. So you don't have to spend so much time, where should my text box go? Or let me spend time dragging and dropping a text box here. So it's thinking as AI does. And what it also does is, if you're familiar with something called data service, it's going to create a data service entity for you in the background, and it's going to create a field for every single one. So like name, date of birth, all of these different fields that were on the form that you just saw, it's going to create an entry for you already in data service. And I'll show you what it looks like in a second over there, but it'll have an understanding of the data type as well. So as you see, here's our form. So it's not exactly like the one that you saw in the picture, but this is a really great starting point. If you're having to type in and drag and drop each of these, it's going to be very time consuming. So if you already have a form that you're using, this is a good place to start. So just kind of a click in here. All of these have events happening in the background. So if you click here, it's going to be attached to a data service entry, a variable that you might be using within an automation. So that way, if you are using a variable, someone types in a string, it knows that string they type in. Now we're going to use that variable to run the automation in the background. So I'm just going to show you real quick. If you look at this submit button and you go over here to events, we're just going to edit the rule. It's already created this data service entry. So when you click submit, all of those entries that people put, so whether it's yes, no, check value, type into, or whatever it may be, it's going to be a field within a data service entity here. And then when they click submit button, it's going to create that for you. You can also add, if you wanted to start a job, other events here. So for sake of time, I'm just going to really jump quickly into data service just to show how it set this up for me. So you can see this here just created a minute ago. It has all of the different ones. You can see yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Unique ID, the date of birth is a date. So it's smart enough to know all of these things. So jumping over to Studio. So this is obviously the main place that we use this. A lot of our generative AI and Autopilot started with Studio Web. Most of the developers I work with don't actually use Studio Web. Studio Web is nice because it comes out with updates every 2 weeks because it's part of our cloud. But realistically, most of our customers are here in Studio Desktop. So you can actually now, so if we just click add, and I'm going to copy and paste a prompt. You click add over here to go add an activity. So you just start typing. I'm just going to paste this in, and as you can see, it says generate with autopilot. So I'll show you what it says in a second once I kick this off. But request input for user. So let's just imagine now you're the nurse that's brought the patient back, and you're like, okay, I need to get their name, request their date of birth using 2 dialog boxes, query the data service entity by name and date of birth. So we want to pull up the one that has that specific name and date of birth in the response, and then display the output the record as a data table, and then display the data table in the message box. So then they can see all of the responses right there. So as you see, this is just a preview. All of the different activity steps. It looks like it's got it, 2 dialog boxes, a query, but we'll see. So we're now going to click confirm. So once we click confirm, this is where the real magic happens. So that's just a preview. I've already played around with this, but it will pull in the dependencies you need. So if I didn't already have the data service activities here, it's going to already pull in these different packages that you're going to need to be able to automate this. So if you're, say, using something with Salesforce, it's going to ask you for something with Salesforce. Now, this is just the beginning of an automation. You're going to have to go through and play around with this. Please enter their patient's name. It's not multiple choice. So obviously, we want to change this to text box. So you do have to do some level of manipulation through here. Goes in and queries the data service entity. I have to select which entity. I haven't added the entity yet, so it's not going to be in there as well. And then also it creates a data table, but then it automatically tries to display this data table. But the data table output here, we know is going to be a data table. And if you're a developer, we need to show it as a string. So a data table you can't show in a message box. So we can do something where another part of autopilot is we can do our text to expression. So if you go into here to our advanced editor, we can say all kinds of things. So like if you're not familiar with regex, or maybe you want to write a link query, you're not sure exactly how to do it, you could say, can you write a link query that does this? For example, I'll just say, and I think the, let's see what the variable name is. I think it's, I'll just say convert variable. I actually can use my variables here. And patient data table, convert patient table to string. Obviously, this is a super simple one. You'd want to use this for something more complex, but just to show it to you guys now and for sake of time, click generate. Patient data table to string, super simple, but just wanted to kind of show that as an example where you can go in and add these here and then have your beginning of an automation, reducing the time to production. So that's what I have for you guys today. Thank you.
Awesome. It seems autopilot is really favorite of many other folks as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for sharing that, Laura. Emily, what about you? What is most exciting for you?
One of my favorite products that we have is integration services, which is a product that comes along with when a customer decides to deploy their environment via Automation Cloud. And that's kind of like what we're all being moved to try to do, get everybody into cloud. So I think it's a good way to entice users a little bit. Here, let me share my screen. So this is integration services. The whole point of it is normally like RPA development is done through the interface, right? Like you're walking the robot through the steps that a human would take. So you're using clicks and type intos and different selectors, right? So integration services helps with API development, which instead of the robot working in what you see, it kind of talks to the back end of that application directly. So you don't have errors thrown about like the robot can't find this selector or something on the screen has moved. Like you won't get errors like that because none of that is being used. So what these connectors are basically like access to each application's API listing. And we have many out of the box pre-configured connectors. You can connect through like any Google Workspace, Azure DevOps, Microsoft, and then there's lots of Oracle for healthcare companies. Yeah, I mean, I haven't even gotten to the bottom of the page. Like this is continually being implemented. And if there's an application that you need to automate and you don't see a connector here, you can go through the connector builder and make that connection yourself. It does require you to have the information for the API to set that up. I'm not going to demo that today because it's a little bit more involved. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to go back to the connectors. Once you click on a connector, authenticate through that connector, the connections that are now available in your folder are all right here. So if you see, I'm in my workspace folder. There is now role-based access control available for integration services. So it's all tied to the folder permissions. So as long as you have access to a folder, you have access to the connections within that folder. I am going to switch my folder. So these are connections already created in my workspace folder. So if I select my Emily Toll folder over here, you'll see I just have one connection in that folder, and it's just a Slack one. There's also a spot to create triggers for triggering automations utilizing these connections. So I've already connected this connector. Let's go over. I'm going to utilize Studio Web for this. So we get a little look at Studio Web. Here's my little demo project. And when that Slack connector has been configured and there's an activity pack associated with actions that are allowed to be taken now within the Slack app, and there's different activities. So I chose to use the send message to channel activity, and all these, I have to configure a couple of things. Why don't we just send it to our Women in the Mayor channel, and then I'll just say, hello, everyone, and in Studio Web, it'll take it as is. You don't need to surround it in quotes, which is kind of crazy. The other thing I can do here, or I have to do because it's selected as with an asterisk, so I have to configure this spot. I can either send this as a user and it'll show up as me, Emily Toll, sending this message, or I can choose a bot to send it. So maybe if I'm like sending out a reminder or something and I don't want people to think I'm being bossy, I'll like select the bot and have them do that. The rest of this is optional to configure. So basically what we just did, instead of like pulling up the Slack application and using a click activity to select the channel, using a click activity to click into the text message, type into activity to type into, there's all these steps that you have to do when you're automating through the UI. And now using integration services, I have that direct connection. I'm only using one activity to send this message. So let's just test it and see if it works. And so it'll show you, like, it works a lot like Studio. It'll tell you like what's compiling. And hopefully in a second, you will get a notification. Or those of you on the UiPath instance of Slack will get the little message in a second. And it ran successfully. So if we open up, let's find it. Here we go. There's my little message. So there's a lot you can do with integration services, and it basically streamlines the development process if you want to develop via API, which a lot of our larger customers and more enterprise-wide automation programs want to do and are already doing, and they use that through different UiPath activities for HTTP requests. But this, I feel like, makes it a lot easier because it's already connecting. It's kind of pulling in a lot of the information. So if you open it in Studio Desktop and you're connected to the same folder where your connection lives, and you use one of the activities, you'll just like, it's a drop down of like selecting the connection you want to utilize and what kind of call you want to make to that connector. I think it's not a lot of people are using it. There's a little bit of security questions being asked around integration services, but I am really impressed with this product. They're constantly putting work into it. There's more connectors being built all of the time. And so I kind of feel like the security situation is like just people doing their due diligence, and eventually most connectors are very secure. It's mostly like the Epic and Fire connectors that people are concerned about, and those have to do with healthcare and patient information, which is fair, but that's just a forewarning that some customers
And
may.
Emily, if I heard you right, you said that this is instrumental specifically for the cloud migrations.
Correct. Yeah, this is not available in on-prem deployment styles, including Automation Suite. This is only available in Automation Cloud.
Awesome. Well, this is great. This is really lovely. I'm sure our audience got to see something they had been interested to know about or learn something new. So thanks for sharing, both of you. So this series is by Women in Automation. So my next question is actually I'm completely pivoting away from the technical demo. I know we have a couple of questions coming in the chat as well. Many of them got answered, but we will absolutely address those questions in a bit too. So pivoting to my next question. Now, this series is hosted by Women in Automation. So my question is a little bit around that. So I'm personally a big advocate of women talent, women workforce, women in tech. And the TAM field specifically, like many technical roles, has often been perceived as very male dominated. So Laura and Emily, I'm curious to know do you see this as a case in your experience, and how have you navigated it? And how can we encourage more women to pursue and thrive in TAM roles?
I can take this one. So definitely still male dominated. I am the only TAM in my group that is a woman. So, surrounded by lots of male peers, which is really great. They have a lot of knowledge. I think my word of advice for other women that are considering this role would be just don't undervalue the soft skills that you have. I think that is extremely important, especially in this position. Just for an example, like if you have been a stay-at-home mother for 10 plus years and you haven't worked and you're feeling so nervous, you're like, I don't have any experience, I can't get back into the workplace. Think of all the skills that you've created. Communication, you have to communicate with your children, you have to communicate with your partner, teachers, coaches, therapists, all of these different people. You have to learn how to communicate with a lot of people. You also have to be very organized. You have to have good time management. I have one son and he has lots of things going around. So I can only imagine if people had more than one child, how much time management and organization would go into that. All of these are very, very important skills to have, especially as a technical account manager. You can learn the hard skills. You can go online right now to academy.uipath.com and start learning today. You can learn these things. And like I mentioned before, as soon as you learn something, it's going to change and you have to learn again. So you're going to be constantly learning these hard skills. Something that I've seen with people that have had highly technical positions previously, maybe they've worked in IT for 10 years and they're like, oh, I have all this IT experience, I'm going to get this technical account manager role. They actually can struggle with customer relations. They can struggle with these soft skills that they haven't practiced. So these ones are just as important. So I would say just make sure that you don't undervalue the skills that you have. They're very much still important, and you can learn the hard skills. So jump at the opportunity. I think that there's a lot of people that can offer a lot of value into this position.
That's
I
awesome. That's
agree.
yeah, exactly.
Everything Laura said is true, and I agree 100%. I am in the HLS vertical, and out of 22, 23 TAMs, 4 of us are women. So there's definitely a glaring disparity between women and men in this role. So, but I do think that like women can really shine in this role because we are somewhat conditioned, right? With these societal norms to be more emotionally intelligent and to have like better communication skills. So why don't we I think a lot of women should just take that instead of, it's unfortunate that like we weren't, I guess like the gender norms, exist, and that's frustrating for sure. But at the same time, we can use it for our own empowerment in this role, I think. So it's kind of an exciting spin.
Absolutely. I cannot agree more. Like technical skills are something you can really pick up, but we as women, we have, Laura, as you're talking like kids, like so much time management, patience, negotiation. Like I have a 7-year-old and I'm negotiating with her all the time. And I totally bring that skill with my customers too, and it helps.
Yep.
So for
Absolutely.
sure. So I'm looking at the time. I absolutely want to take live questions from the audience. But before we wrap up, I would love to know, Laura, from you and Emily, what is the one piece of advice you would give to someone who is maybe just starting their career in TAM or considering a career in this field? Or even for people who are in this role, how do they keep thriving in this career track? So any piece of advice.
Yeah, I mean, I would just, almost building on my last answer, just continuously learn, speak up, reach out to your peers, ask questions. Also, if others are asking questions, maybe do some research, help them out as well. That helps with the networking. That also helps you build your skills. Something else that I found to be very helpful, because I've had a lot of the soft skills in my previous roles, needing to learn the technical things, is to get hands-on. So build in studio, build out document understanding projects. If you're doing a demo, create your own demo. We do have a whole a whole UiPath Labs is what we call it, where you can find pre-built demos, but build your own. Your customers are gonna be asking a lot of questions, and you're going to want to get on hands-on and learn it. So try to get as hands-on as you can and have fun with it. Build and learn and grow, and just continuously try to advance that way.
Awesome. Great advice, Emily.
And for people who are trying to like keep thriving in this career track, I would just say well, without trying to sound like a broken record, I know we've heard from corporate recently about like being customer focused and the customer is the highest priority and being customer obsessed. And honestly, as someone in a customer facing role, that's music to my ears, because I feel like the entire organization, whether you're in a customer facing role or not, like needs to be customer focused. Like, why else are we here, right? Like, for TAMs especially, the customer is paying my salary. So I need to make sure that they're happy, they have what they need. I'm advocating for them, I'm fighting for them on their behalf. I'm on their team, but I'm also like bridging the gap of like being on my own UiPath team as well. So I feel like when you kind of get bogged down, it's really difficult to keep going when you don't have maybe like a why in the back of your mind of like, why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? And honestly, it's just like, at the end of the day, I need to make this customer happy so that they continue to use our product and continue to buy licenses, and I continue to have employment. So it's kind of like breaks it down to a more like very basic level, but it's important to have that motivation and that drive to prioritize the customer like at all times at all costs, because they're literally the reason why all of us are here. So
Absolutely. I cannot agree more. And another, I think one piece of advice I could throw in is, of course, we have to be open-minded, open to learning, be customer savvy. Another thing which I feel really helps, irrespective of whatever role we are in, is finding that mentor, engage in the networking. Like we can learn so much and grow so much if we invest our time in that. I personally have benefited a lot by having my mentors and networking, so totally would recommend and encourage everybody to continue doing that. And with that, I would actually love to start taking questions from the audience. I know there have been a lot of questions coming on through chat. A lot of them have been addressed already. While we scan through any unanswered questions, feel free to unmute yourself, come on the camera, and ask your questions live too. We would absolutely love that. While we're doing that, I'm reading the question from Sam. Are there any UiPath courses that you would recommend? So Laura,
This is a challenging question, Emily. I mean, just FYI, the coding bootcamp that I did was through UNC Charlotte. That's where I graduated with my bachelor's degree, and I live in Charlotte, so It was the first place I looked and found one, and it had good reviews. So that's just FYI, that's what I did. I actually don't do a lot of coding in my current position, but it allowed me to be introduced into the technical role and learn the basics of computer science. I would say I recently did the advanced developer certification. So there are career pathways within there. I think that the learning the different certifications, the advanced developer brings you through everything you need to know about UiPath, all of the different parts of the platform, and you know how to be a developer as well. Even just the associate developer will bring you through the basics. It can be kind of overwhelming because it's like 100 hours of training, but if you look through the different career paths as well as the different, I guess the courses that go with specific personas, I think that would be a great place to start.
I agree with that. So even the associate developer course is a great foundation into our platform and what it can do. I feel like that's a great place to start. And then beyond that, any tool that, again, like it's whatever your customers are doing, that's what you should know how to do. It's like document understanding is like really interesting and fun, and there's a lot going on, but I currently don't have a customer utilizing it in a way that they need me to help them, I guess. So like HCA uses document understanding, but they're like, fine, they know how to do it. They don't need their TAM support for that. So like, I don't spend a lot of my time in document understanding, but I try to tailor what I'm learning to what my customer needs and what they're interested in. So it's really difficult to answer that question of what you should be learning. But again, the associate developer course is a good foundation. The boot camp I went to is out of Detroit, Michigan. That's where I was before I was in Virginia, and it's called Grand Circus. I had an excellent experience. It was like the most supportive learning environment I've ever been in, and I also have a bachelor's degree, so I really appreciated it. The only thing is most of the career opportunities will be Michigan based, but there are remote roles that you're able to. And again, like I'm not coding, I'm not writing JavaScript every day, I'm not designing websites, but it got my foot in the door. And there's the back end part of the full stack is what I use actually primarily. So it was not a waste by any means to go to boot camp.
I personally like the business analyst one quite a bit too. That really covers the whole platform, and it's a very good blend of the technical aspect of it and also how we should be looking at the value while we're working with our customers. So look for the business analyst learning path as well. That's pretty good too. Okay, I'm seeing another question from Melissa. Don't want to put you on the spot, Melissa, but you can come on the screen and ask the question too if you want.
Hi, thanks for this session, Laura and Emily. Really loved this conversation and the demo as well. So I've pasted my question already on the chat. I'm just curious to know, what are your challenges, day-to-day challenges that you typically face? And have you ever encountered a situation where the product or feature was not ready, and how did you handle such a situation with the customer?
I think that's a great question. I mean, I think the biggest challenge that I face is, trying to get answers from product team as they're looking at things. So a lot of times they're like, hey, I'm really interested in, do you have this capability? Is this available? And I'll reach out and they're like, we're not sure, or, get back to us in a few months, or, it's hard to get the responses sometimes. So being that trusted advisor, that liaison between the customer and internal UiPath, it can be challenging when they ask you these hard questions and you just don't have an answer for them, and you have to go back and be like, I just don't know right now. It was the second part of your question, like how to navigate, how do you handle that with a customer? I think what's important to me is that, as soon as you become a TAN, you start building that trusted relationship so you can have these open conversations. Like, this is exactly the steps I've taken so far. Maybe like I added a reminder. They said it'd take a few weeks. I've added a reminder into my Outlook in a few weeks. Let's go back then, and I'll remind them then. So just being open and honest, and making all the efforts. And if they know you and if they trust you, they'll take those answers a little bit better. It's not always black and white. There's always, it sometimes is very challenging.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it is challenging. It's helpful if you meet product with numbers. Like what kind of value is the customer going to get out of this? What kind of return? So I have worked with several of our larger customers. So if one of my customers, who is one of the larger customers, like really wants something or is waiting on something, like, or they're questioning, like, well, we were told this would be ready by September and it's still not delivered. Like, where is this feature? I can then go around and ask the TAMs on the accounts of the other large accounts and say, like, okay, my customer's asking for this thing. Would your customer also be interested in it? And so when I pull in, these multi-million-dollar deals, and now everybody wants this feature, what are they going to do? They can't argue with me. So I kind of just like come to the product team with lack of a better term, ammunition, I guess, like, and knowing that, like, I've got the numbers to back this up. People are going to use it. They want to use it. So we need to implement this and get it on the roadmap. And it's been effective.
I cannot agree more. Definitely use the data to make a business case, and then use the village to support you, like escalate it to your leadership, tap into your sales team, your CS team, the CDLs, and like work together to make it happen.
Totally.
I'm looking at the time now. We just have 2 more minutes. Let's take one more question if anybody has any, and then we can wrap up the session. Any more question? I'm trying to see if, let's see.
I have a quick question, if
Sure.
there's not anybody. Sure. So what is the best way to stay informed about upcoming training sessions? Like you mentioned one around upcoming business analyst training sessions that UiPath Academy might be doing, or community might be out there.
There's a couple of ways. So I'm going to put in chat the URL for the community in case people don't know what it is. You can copy that. And then also I'm part of the Women in Automation Slack channel. So, I can always refer to things that are happening in there, and you can always look at this URL and find any kind of events that are running any country globally. We're running, I think, 80 events a month.
Great. Thank you. Good to know.
Awesome. I'm looking at the time. So let's wrap up today's session. Thank you once again for joining today's A Day in the Life session featuring our incredible technical account management team. I'm sure everybody has gained a deeper understanding of what it takes to excel in this role. Laura, Emily, thank you so much for your perspective and insights. And as we continue to explore various career paths within UiPath, the broader automation industry and AI overall, our next session would be on September 18th, the same time, where we will explore the roles of sales and pre-sales. So hope to see you all there again. Once again, big thank you to all our panelists for sharing the stories and to everyone who participated today. Look forward to continuing this journey together. Thank you and have an amazing day.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.